What do goth dolls wear in winter? Well, of course the answer is whatever they want, because goth's who you are, not what you wear, but they still want to look cool while keeping warm. So this week I'm making a wintry goth girl with some super cute faux fur accessories. But how do you create long plaits or braids without the bulk? Keep watching to find out. I'm using a quilting cotton from the Modibella Solids range in Zen Grey for the head and hands. I've got some black and white stripes for the legs, and I want to create the impression of a high neck and long sleeves, so I'm using a grey polka dot print for the body and arms. I want to use some of this black embroidered lace for a skirt, and I just got this short pile faux fur in jet black, which I'm going to make some accessories with. The pile is very dense and the backing fabric is lovely quality, so I think it's going to be perfect for doll making. I'm going to use some green acrylic yarn for the hair, which I think will stand out nicely against the black. I want to give her some ear muffs, so I've got some pipe cleaners and a few other bits and pieces for those. I'll show you how I make those later. After stuffing all the pieces with polyester fibre, I bead joint the arms and legs with some metal beads. I've tried some other types of beads in the past, but these metal ones work best for me. I'm not a fan of plastic beads. I like something with a bit more weight. I love the designs on these beads too. It's like built-in jewellery. I button joint the neck with a button at the centre of the back and another one on top of the head. The buttons will be hidden by hair and clothing, so I'm not too choosy about those. I use Gutterman top stitch thread for all the jointing. This is by far the best thread I've found for doll making. Getting the tension right is important for the neck. The head needs to be held firmly to the body. As long as the placement of the buttons is right, then the head will tilt left or right without wobbling or getting stuck. Before I attach the legs, I'm going to paint some boots. This is so much easier to do before the legs are sewn on. I'm using some black acrylic paint with a bit of fabric medium mixed in. I've painted some green laces onto those to match the yarn I'm going to use for the hair. She's mostly going to be dressed in black, but a little pop of colour here and there adds a bit of contrast and brings everything together. Once the legs are stitched to the body, I can start work on the face. I'm shading around the eye area with Derwent Chromaflow pencils, building up layers of pigment. This is mostly black with a bit of obsidian green. I use a blending pencil to get it nice and dark and blend it outwards into a soft edge. So what we end up with is two hollow looking circles. That's going to need at least a couple of coats of fixative spray before I can do any more on the face, so in the meantime I'll work on the clothes. This embroidered lace is just beautiful. I want to make a calf-length gothic skirt with it, but it's quite sheer. I've lined it with some black tulle, but it's still very see-through, so I'll have to find something a little bit thicker to line it with. This lightweight cotton fabric should do the trick. It's still quite light and floaty, but it's heavy enough to be opaque behind the lace. I'm stitching both layers to the doll, then she needs a wide belt to cover that button on the back. This grosgrain ribbon is perfect. A lot of this will be hidden, so I'm not going to add any detail to it. I'm just gluing it in place with some super thick tacky glue. While that dries, I'll go back to the face. As usual, links to the Derwent pens and pencils, as well as some of the other tools and materials I use, will be down in the description. Now that glue should be fairly dry, so I can attach the arms. There's no bodice to hide the knot under on this doll, so I'm starting just under the shoulder at the side. The bead should sit over that and hide it. She's going to have a wrap around her shoulders anyway, but I still want to keep it looking as neat as I can. I stitch through each bead twice, then fasten the thread off with a couple of tiny stitches under the arm opposite to where I started. Before I do anything else, I want to make some accessories with that faux fur. The wrap for her shoulders is just a simple rectangle. I'm cutting carefully along the knit of the backing fabric, making sure I don't cut any of that pile. I want to get a nice neat edge. The backing on this is lovely and soft. Faux fur can sometimes be a bit scratchy, so I tend to line it with some felt, but I don't think this needs it. For the earmuffs, I'm covering a couple of wooden buttons with faux fur. I'm just using the super thick tacky glue and tucking all the edges in. I'll leave those to dry for a little while, then I'll come back to them when I've done the hair. I'm using some super chunky acrylic yarn for the hair. This is from the Signet Seriously Chunky range. As usual, I'm needle felting it with the clover tool and 3 38 gauge needles. I'll have a second clover tool handy with 2 needles in it. I'll use that one for felting straight lines and fine details. This is going to be styled into 2 long plaits or braids for my American friends. If you've ever tried to style doll hair, you'll know it can be really bulky, so I'm not going to felt the full head of hair. I'm just felting a thin layer over most of the head first. This stops the fabric showing through any gaps and gives the appearance of lovely thick hair. Now, if I felted long hair from the centre and tried to plait it all, it would be way too full and the plaits would look out of proportion to the doll. So I'm covering the head with shorter lengths of yarn. Then I'll make the plaits separately. This just needs to be attached along the parting, then I'll unravel it and felt the ends in at the sides. If she wasn't going to be wearing earmuffs, I'd leave a few of these strands loose and then blend them into the plaits to hide the join, but the earmuffs are hopefully going to completely cover this area at the sides of the head, so I don't need to worry about that. If you're enjoying watching this little one take shape, don't forget to hit that like button and let me know. You can also subscribe if you like so you don't miss the next one. I'm unravelling 3 lengths of the yarn. I'm going to make 1 very long plait with these, then I'll chop it in half. I just need to secure the end somewhere. Perfect! Now these can be felted onto the sides of the head. Needle felting is pretty strong, so I don't need to stitch them in place. I've left them quite long so I can trim them and tidy them up a bit later, but I actually really like the length, so I don't think I'm going to trim too much off these. Now for those earmuffs. I'm using a pipe cleaner to make a band to go over the top of the head. This is a little bit fiddly. I'm just stitching it to the head with some top stitch thread and positioning the first earmuff over the join for the plait. That's covering it quite well. I might have to tuck a few strands in with the felting needle, but overall I think it's looking pretty good. Now I just need to get the other earmuff symmetrical. I was going to use some ribbons for the ends of the plaits, but then I found these metal beads. They add a bit of weight to the plaits and I think they look really cute. I wanted something wintry and a little bit goth to fasten the wrap, so what could be better than a snowflake obsidian bead? I've made her a choker necklace with a crescent moon charm, and she's ready for a photo shoot. I've named her Ava Darkwinter. If you like this little wintry girl, here's another one I think you're going to love. Go watch that one now, and I'll see you next time. Bye!